This is the Get Better Everyday podcast with Matt Gouget. Actionable advice from real life superheroes who, just like you, are in relentless pursuit of the best version of themselves. Whether you're just getting started or have been at it for years, my hope is that this podcast injects you with some positive energy to continue doing what brings you joy. Join me as I interview the best of the best in business, sports, and life. Let's grow together. All right. Get Better Everyday podcast with Matt Gouget. I'm excited. I've got Erin Stumpf today, a really, industry leader in the real estate space. I'd probably spend 20 minutes, Erin, if I went over all the accolades, but just some stuff I know offhand. President of our local Sacramento Association of Realtors. You're on the board of directors, not only at a statewide level for California Association of Realtors, but as of late, I think the National Association of Realtors board of directors. Endless things you're doing in the community, and this is on top of somebody who's an active real estate agent doing a lot of deals. So your time is valuable. I appreciate the time that you carved out to be with me today. Thanks for joining. And maybe we'll start with, where did the real estate journey begin for you?
I kind of got into real estate by accident. When I was pretty young, I came into some money and my parents were like, you need to buy a house. So I was like, okay. So at 21, I bought my first condo and, had a realtor help me, and that was great. And then when it was time to buy the second house a few years later, I went back to that same realtor who helped me again. And I thought, well, gosh, I could do this probably. And I also thought, I want to buy and sell more property. I'd really love to get my license and have access to the information and do this for myself. But I didn't really have any designs on being a realtor. I wasn't planning on making it a career. I just wanted access to the information. And so I got my license. And then literally a week after I got my license, the company I was working for closed its doors. So I thought, oh, well, I've got this license. I don't really have any job prospects right at the moment. So I'm gonna give this a whirl. And that was 2005, and I've been at it ever since. So that's how I got into it.
No, yeah, fell into it by accident, which is a cool way to do it. I feel like mortgage for me was similar, where I was sitting around at a kid's birthday party and was telling a friend, I don't think I'm going to manage poker rooms for the rest of my life. And they're like, you know what? You're good with people, and you got some business acumen and a network, maybe mortgage, right? And so got started, 2014-ish there. I would love to talk to you because for anybody who's in the real estate space or anything that's kind of tied to real estate, 2020 and 21 were championship years, where there was 7 million real estate transactions happening every year because the money was so darn cheap that buying real estate, which I think we're both fans of at any time, was, especially attractive in those 2 years. Since then, since the steroid injection has worn off and now we're, back to more normal markets, it's tougher for your average agent, and you being well above average, top 1% of agents. I'd love to hear from you how you go from brand new, and get better every day is something I love talking about, and I know that it doesn't happen overnight, right? In 2006 you weren't the best agent in Sacramento. But over time, with enough steps and enough focus on it, how do you go from being new? And this honestly might be something, in my opinion, that other real estate agents can take, that have got into the business, seen a little bit of success, and then seen that success kind of fade because the market hasn't been as forgiving as it's been the last couple of years. So I guess, some personal examples of what you've done, and then maybe advice to others on, how do you grow and get better as a real estate agent?
Yeah, well, when I got in, it was September of 2005, and I think that's literally when the Sacramento market peaked. And so, yeah, it's hard to hit the ground running in any market, and especially if you just got in when everyone was kind of fat and happy, transactions were abundant, everyone seemed to want to buy and sell. Well, maybe not sell. We didn't have as many sellers, but a lot of people wanted to buy. And the money was cheap, as you mentioned. Any market, I think, is a challenge to get into and get a foothold in, because there are lots of realtors, there's lots of competition. And, like when I got in, I think I probably knew a dozen realtors in my own circle. So I knew at that time I was highly unlikely to beat any of them out in our own sphere to get referrals and what have you. For me, and I think this is still true today, there are a number of ways to get connected to people, to get leads, and to be successful. And I think the mistake I see a lot of agents make, and a lot of mortgage professionals and whatever, right? People in our industry, our profession, they try to do too much. They all do open houses. Oh, I'm going to door knock. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do that. And they spread themselves way too thin across a lot of different ways to try to drum up business. And what I think is probably one of the big keys to success is to pick one way, two way, three ways of getting leads, getting business, and get really good at them. Don't do like a dozen things to try to generate business, because you will be the master of nothing. But get good at like 2 or 3 things and own those 2 or 3 ways of doing business, getting leads and what have you, and you will dominate. I mean, that's what I did. I learned very early on that I was not going to get referrals very early on in my career. I get tons of them now, right? But 17 years in, you have a big book of business. You have a lot of raving fans by that point. So the referral business for me is really big now. And I've gotten really good at cultivating that piece of it now as one of my kind of top 3. But when I first got in, I had an abundance of time. I didn't have another job, and I didn't have a ton of spare money because I had just lost my job. I basically filed for unemployment and said a prayer that this was going to work out. I bought a bunch of domain names. I started putting all kinds of content online. This was back at a time, 2005, 2006. A lot of agents didn't even have websites. Now, I mean, it's pretty easy to find online content, but I created a lot of online content and I just stayed very busy. I went out and toured property. I went out and I wrote about what I experienced. I wasn't afraid to try short sales, which is where I really got a foothold in our business at that point. I was, I took them on early and I became really good at those. And then I became known for being really good at those. Might be an opportunity for someone now as we change into a shifting market, but get good at something. Because if you don't get good at a few things, you're going to be good at nothing. And then you're really not going to be of value to your clients or, to yourself and in a way to try to find business.
Yeah, I like that. And something I want to pull out for listeners, which is important, is you said, it takes a while and it's not easy. I remind people all the time when I'm coaching on the mortgage side that someone's entrusting you with the largest financial transaction of their life.
Absolutely.
So if you're a real estate agent and somebody's going to go buy a $500,000 or $600,000 house, sign a 30-year note to pay this back, they better like you, trust you at a really high level. And I saw it in my own personal business where it took years in some cases for someone to say, you know what, I see that guy working hard. I see him doing enough. I see the passion he has behind it and serving people. We'll go ahead and work with them. But, it's not as easy. And this is something that's probably a misconception in real estate or other things. It's like, I got my license. Great. No offense. And I'll probably offend agents with some stuff I say sometimes, but like getting your license and being a top 1% real estate agent like you, Erin, is like such a wide gap. Right. Because
there's a huge chasm there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, just like anything else too, and this probably applies to any field really. If you truly want to be good at it, to your point, like you have to put in hours, you have to put in work, and you have to be focused and intentional about these are the areas where I can truly add value to the end consumer. And this is the 2 or 3 things I'm doing. So, you mentioned short sales. I'd love to maybe get some ideas from your experience 2007 through 2011, because, for those who are like, man, this market is tough and there's less transactions happening and, people are uncertain. I'm guessing that some of the things that you had to go through back then, especially because you were newer too, right? So if somebody's newer now and they're going through a market that's not, a silver platter and just being handed to them, what is some of the stuff that got you through there as you started to ramp up and build that book of business?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of parallels between what happened back then and what happened now, right? We had a huge contraction in the number of transactions being had, right? We're like down nearly half in terms of volume right now. That is almost identical to what happened. I remember in '07, there was that huge credit crunch where, I mean, it was almost impossible to qualify for a loan. Luckily, we don't have that element happening right now. We just have high rates and some other things that are causing people to, maybe pull back. And also we have lack of inventory, right? We had surging inventory back then. So, I mean, there's some things that are similar, but a lot of things that are different too. No two markets are alike.
Yeah.
But, I think, with short sales in particular, um, I think a lot of agents who are new are probably, I've found myself explaining a lot just what a short sale even is. So maybe I should start there, right? So, short sales really haven't been a thing for about 10 years. And, so a short sale is when the homeowner lacks the equity to be able to sell a home and pay off all the costs of sale and the mortgage in the transaction. So maybe the house is worth 500,000, and maybe they owe 550. And then of course, all the fees associated with the transaction, commissions, title insurance, escrow fees, transfer tax, you can't break clean from the transaction without coming in with a lot of cash. And so a short sale, we list the property, but then we negotiate a lower payoff with the lien holders and get them to accept the net proceeds of that sale as settlement in full for less than the amount owed. So that's what a short sale is, like in a real oversimplified explanation. And, back in the day, and I think the same is probably true today, people didn't know what short sales were. People were kind of scared of short sales. I had heard, oh, this short sale is a possibility. And so many people lost a lot of equity really quickly. Now we have a lot of equity rich people, but if you bought in the last 12 months to 18 months, you may not be in a real equitable position. And some people are going to have to sell for one reason or another: death, divorce, job relocation. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why people need to buy or sell. And so, if I were an agent right now, I would be trying to kind of bone up on what that skill set is, especially if you got your license in the last couple of years and you happen to sell people homes. If you represented those buyers, I can guarantee you that there's a percentage of those buyers that are going to have to think real hard about selling in the next year or so. So it's a good time to reach back out to those people and just check in, see how they're doing. They'd probably love a friendly voice, especially if they're getting a little bit stressed out about their financial situation. And maybe there's an impending situation coming that they're going to have to make some hard choices. Be that person to help them through that period. So I guess that's what I would suggest, just kind of bone up on that skill set, because a lot of agents really don't have it. Even the ones that were around back then, but I would venture that a lot of the realtors in our market right now are new in the last 10 years.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where I can attest to it. Some things that we were doing in mortgage, even if they were 3 or 4 years ago, you might lose a skill set, right? If you haven't rode a bike for 7 years,
Yeah.
You're not going to be as good tomorrow when you jump on it. So, even if you understood short sales and even, completed a few, there might be some new rules, there might be some things, but, this is a testament to, continuing to get better, continuing to hone your craft. And this applies to anything. This applies to any job. I was talking to somebody earlier. We were making the, like, I love analogies and I love sports, right? And like, if you're playing a professional sport, like, you're trying to get better every day. You're trying to win that next contract, right? And the same should be true for any professional, where it's like, I'm not guaranteed to get business next year. And I'm honest enough with myself that if I am not continually getting better and I'm not adding value to where, I'm the best fit for a client, even a past client of mine that I've done business with, then, they have the right to go elsewhere, because at the end of the day, consumers have the chance to choose who they work with, right? And it's a big deal. And that's something that I don't know if it'll ever get across, Erin, but I promise you, I'm shouting from rooftops, like, who you work with matters, right? And I'm telling people that, this is a large transaction. Just because, your sorority sister's best friend got her real estate license doesn't mean like you should go use that person for the $600,000 purchase, which is a huge deal for you. So I could go on and on about that. I'll not continue that rant. I'd love to ask you too, because 2023 is upon us. Everyone's got goals. Everyone's trying to get better every day in one area or another. I've got family goals. I've got health goals. I've got, of course, business goals. Just on the personal side, is there things in 2023 besides all the boards, all the associations, all the community work, and serving dozens and dozens of clients, which I'm sure you'll do in 2023?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. In the pandemic, our lives seem to change so much. One of my goals for 23 is actually getting back into running. I'm sure this is something you can appreciate. I mean, I know that you've done a lot of endurance sports and things like that. I in 2015, I did a couple 50Ks. I ran a marathon. I was probably in the best shape of my life. Then I went to graduate school and I got a little lax on the running, didn't give it up. But in the pandemic, I've been really, really lax with running. So I just actually this morning registered for a half marathon. So I'm gonna get back into that now that I've got kind of a goal set, like a tangible goal that I have to train for. I'm gonna start training for that. Shouldn't be too hard. I mean, a half marathon is a really comfortable distance for me. I'm not an overly fast runner, but I really want to kind of rededicate myself to that, because I think it's so easy to get caught up in everything else and neglect yourself. That this is the year that I feel like I'm gonna reinvigorate my personal mental health and physical health. Not that it got bad, but it's so easy to focus on other stuff that, in addition to, all the other stuff, I'm carving out time for this year for me. So,
Yeah.
and my husband and I are going to travel a lot more too. Being the Sacramento Association of Realtors president is a lot of work. You have to be around to run a lot of meetings and you have a lot of obligations. And now that I'm the immediate past president, I'll still have a lot to do, but I won't have to rigidly adhere to this really rigorous calendar of stuff. So I'm looking forward to taking some time for me.
Some travel for you and Greg. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, that's a really cool point. And it's funny because I've had this conversation with my team, with my wife, with everybody in the last couple of weeks. Exactly what you said. Like if you've got something that you want to accomplish in 2023, and listeners, get out a pen and a paper and jot this down. It's a lot easier to achieve goals if you pin something in the future that you're working towards.
Yep.
For you, it's like registering for a half marathon. I told my wife, I told my coach, I told everybody I know, 190 pounds for me. I haven't been 190 pounds in a decade. I'm going to be 190 pounds by the end of Q1. And,
all right.
And so to do that, there's certain things I need to do, register for this shredder challenge with my gym. And I've got like the coach who's got a team, and we're going to compete to see who can, lose the most body fat.
Awesome.
We're all going to get DEXA scans. But if it wasn't for that 190 goal, and setting things, because I actually have on my 2023 goals in Q2, I'm already thinking about, is it going to be a half marathon? Is it going to be a Spartan race? Something that I'm working towards that's going to work me closer to my goals. So, you can do that with anything. You can do that with a business goal, and you can say, here's how many transactions I want to do. And on the way to those transactions, if I do, a home buyer, seminar every month, and I do X number of calls to my past client database, if I do this number of open houses, right, all the things that work you towards that goal, like this is really good stuff for, anybody in any goal, health, family, in business. Another thing I wanted to pull out of what you said is, rededicating yourself to mental health, physical health, all that stuff. I'm a firm believer that when I take care of what I call my lead dominoes, which is health and family, the business and all the other stuff, it operates better.
Oh yeah.
I show up, as the best business leader. I show up as the best, boss and loan originator, all the things that I'm doing on the business side, when I know wife and I are, getting along great, and I'm doing the things I need to do to be a great husband.
Absolutely.
Showing up as a good dad and getting in the gym. And I told people, man, like right now I'm feeling good. I was 228 at the end of Q3. And now I'm about 208. And the 208 version of me feels like I've got unlimited energy. When I'm 190,
Oh
the
man.
world better watch out.
Bring
Right?
it.
Right. Yeah. The world better watch out. You know, and you brought up the endurance stuff too. I did that marathon back in 2021. I'm not fast either, but it was a matter of like, it helps your heart health.
Oh
Right. I
yeah.
want to get healthy. So tell yourself you're going to run a marathon.
Right.
Then halfway through the year, I was like, am I out of my mind?
Yep, you
You know,
probably were, but not really. I think
I,
everyone has that moment when you're either at mile 20 of the marathon or you're halfway to training for like, what am I doing?
right. Yeah. I ended up running 880 or 885 miles in 2021. Whenever we're trying to think back to like, oh, did we go to Santa Cruz? Is that 2021 or is that like any vacation memory I have from 2021? I was running in
Yep.
Santa Cruz. I was running when we went camping. I was running everywhere. So, yeah, cheers to, you know, pinning a goal, and a finish line up there on a cork board or somewhere, and then working
Yep.
relentlessly towards that. That's cool. What else you have planned in 2023, you know, from a community or real estate standpoint? Because I know that, you know, you're not at the level you're at, and you're not going to continue to stay there without having some sort of like compass or direction.
Yeah, well, you know, from a purely business standpoint, right? You know, I realized I was actually analyzing my 2022 the other day, and my first half of 22, you know, I did about 15 million and what was it? 26 transactions. The first half of 22 was really good. And then the second half of 22, of course, you know, we can all peg the interest rate hike that was basically, you know, I think the seismic one was in mid-June. You know, my second half of 22, I still did great by any measure, but I did about half of what I did in the first half of 22. I did 7 million and 13 transactions in the second half of 22. Now, I think that's pretty normal considering that our transaction volume fell off by about half. So, you know, if you look at that by, you know, measuring what happened in the rest of the market and looking at how it affected my business, and going back to that too, I mean, I had a lot of sellers at that point that I'd been working with decide, oh, values are going down, I'm not selling. So, you know, like it was a little bit of a rebalance, a little bit of a load balance. And so, you know, while I want to always every year endeavor to kind of beat my last year, I also don't want to set unrealistic goals for myself. So, you know, this last year I did 39 transactions and about a little over 23 million. And, you know, am I going to do that in 23? Well, I would like to, but I also, you know, want to be able to measure what I'm doing. I want to be able to, you know, kind of calculate what the outputs are going to look like. And so I have set, you know, I think what is an attainable goal for 2023, and I'm not going to kill myself to try to work within a framework that doesn't exist in our market right now. So I think, you know, for anyone who's doing their own business planning, sure, it's good to have goals, but I'm not gonna spin myself into the ground, you know, trying to better my prior year when the market may not be conducive to that. So I have set more what I think are realistic goals, still lofty, still I think attainable, because I don't want to set myself up to fail. I want to set myself up for success. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to kind of take the year off. It just means that I'm going to do, you know, within the framework that I think exists, I'm going to do what I feel is appropriate to get the output that I feel is appropriate. So I have set, I've set realistic goals business wise for 23. For 23, I kind of have this nerdy real estate trifecta happening for what I'm doing at our local, state, and national associations. For the local association, I'll be the immediate past president. And I will be I am the chair of our government relations committee, which I'm really excited about. At the state association, I'll be the vice chair of our federal issues committee, which I'm also very excited about. And then at the National Association of Realtors, I will be the chair of the federal taxation policy committee. So I've got like this nerdy trifecta of stuff going on here. And I got to say that, I'm very passionate about real estate, but I'm also equally passionate about the success of our profession. And so, being involved in these policy committees for me scratches a really big itch that I have, just on my own, basic level of loving policy. I have a master's degree in public policy, really, really digging into this kind of stuff. So, I also want to give that my full attention. And so, so I've got kind of this, three-legged stool of things that I'm hoping to accomplish this year. And I'm going to focus on enjoying the year and loving all of it.
Yeah, I love that too, because, I think for a lot of folks who focus on just the numbers, that there's only so much reward in that, right? Where when you're, giving back and you're adding value and you're, elevating the whole profession and you're elevating others around you, like that feels really good. That doesn't hit many P&Ls, and that doesn't necessarily translate, to, what gets printed on the plaque. But, in the same vein, stuff I'm doing around, financial education for borrowers and, coaching of loan officers, that stuff is passion project, which fills up a bucket that it's not necessarily monetary or gets put on a plaque, but it's still a good portion of the focus because it feels good, right? And it's fun and it's valuable. I think, yeah, when we ride off into the sunset and we're done, that's the kind of stuff that will probably be remembered more than like, oh, the guy did 109 million in 2001. Look at him go.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel like, it makes us better when we involve ourselves in helping others get better and helping our profession get better. I know it sharpens my skills every day when when I work through all this other stuff that, yeah, you're right. It doesn't help my bottom line as a realtor, but it absolutely helps here. And so, I think that there's something really to be said for that, it really keeps you sharp. It keeps you on your game. It keeps you in the know. And, helping others is absolutely, you're right, so gratifying and fills that bucket. And when that bucket's full, every other bucket is full too.
Yeah. And that's probably something for Get Better Everyday listeners is no matter where you're at on the ladder, if you're just starting, there's people who have done it before you that want to help, because it gratifies them to help you. And if you have succeeded at any level in any profession, in anything, whether it's, you're the best CrossFit coach in the country, or, you're a great runner, and Greg could probably teach me how to, better my marathon time. Generally speaking, there's people that want to help. And I always think back, like when I was brand new in 2014, 15, 16, all I did was look for somebody who was doing triple what I was doing. And it's like, what are they doing? And more often than not, what I found is like, they're providing more value. They're getting more business because they're better at their profession. I think that a lot of realtors that might look to Erin Stumpf and say, well, I'd love to do, 25 million in a year in transactions. I'd love to be that. Well, in order to attract the amount of clients that it takes to close that many deals, you need to become better at your craft, right? And that's where a lot of people, they want the best marketing system and they want the best CRM and, the best door hanger, whatever the heck the thing is. And it's not the thing, it's who you become on the journey that's eventually going to attract the business, right?
Yep. You hit the nail on the head.
All right, man. If I can't say anything better than that, it's a good place to wrap for Get Better Every Day. And any parting words for you? Any advice or anything for the Get Better Everyday listeners?
Yeah, I would just go back to, figure out the few things that you want to really nail and do them well. And, if you've got this business plan, right? Because just like training for a half marathon or anything else, this week I'm going to run X number of miles. I'm going to do intervals. I'm going to do a long, slow run this day and whatever, right? You gotta plan it out. You got to really strategize how you're going to approach it. And the same is true with your business. And if you find yourself that, trying 12 different things that don't really produce for you, figure out the few that you feel like you could get really good at, or that you are good at, and really hone in on those, because there are a lot of ways to get business out there. And there are a lot of ways to really dominate in one or two or three areas. Just don't spread yourself so thin. Kill it, whatever it is you're doing, and get good at that. And that I think is the best advice that I can impart to anyone who's trying to do anything, whatever the business is, whatever the goal is. Don't try to do too much. Figure out what you're good at, figure out what you enjoy, and do that. Like I don't go out and do open houses. I hate open houses. And if I did open houses, I'd probably, really not enjoy, I wouldn't enjoy it. I wouldn't have fun. The people coming to the houses would probably see that. They wouldn't want to work with me anyway. But, I can write a blog post and post on social media and, get business that way, or call up past clients and whatever. So, figure out what it is that you like. Don't expend energy doing something that you hate, thinking that it might pay off just because someone else is good at it. Find out what you're good at and do that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When you're your authentic self and you're just doing you, and you're doing what you enjoy, people see that, and that energy,
Definitely.
translates. And so, I speak that language for sure, where it's like, this is me online. If you reach out to me, I'm probably the same dude. And if you reached out, you probably thought I was an all right guy that you might want to work with. So welcome. So thank you so much, Erin, for your time. I really appreciate it. Cheers to an amazing 2023. Good luck on the half marathon. All the
good luck on that 190.
Yeah. Oh, it's not a matter of if, but when. Yeah, it's happening. Awesome. Yeah, it's already been written. Thanks, Erin.
Awesome.